Welcome back to the second installment of my custom campaign tier list. Initially, when I started this project, I thought it wouldn't be that popular, but it turned out to be quite the opposite. Looks like this tier list thing is still relevant enough to be used as a video topic. Anyway, like the rookie I am, I forgot to mention some things in part 1. For starters, if you'd like to view my completion of a campaign I put on the tier list, there is always a video tied to it, but I must warn you, some of the first campaigns I completed may have poor quality, because back then I didn't know this project would ever exist, so watch with caution. Or maybe let me know if I should redo my oldest completions. Before we continue the ranking, here are the rules again in case you forgot them. But I will go over them quickly because I already explained them in detail in part 1. Only advanced and expert difficulty will be taken into consideration when discussing difficulty. Both human players and bots are taken into account because not everyone has friends. Nothing personal on that note, by the way. And gameplay will be prioritized over aesthetics. Now with that out of the way, let's continue on with this madness. And we're starting out today off strong with the best mall themed campaign to ever exist. Dead Before Dawn DC is what Dead Center could have been, with 3 of the 5 maps taking place inside the mall instead of Dead Center's 2 out of 4. This campaign also holds, in my opinion, the best narrator you can find in any custom campaign, namely the Crossroads Mall's security guard, Hank Kowalski.
It's a fucking infected party out there! What'd you do, invite half the city? You're smoking something vicious if you think I'm gonna let you in here!
A little fun fact, Hank's voice lines are present in the base game's files. It's like this campaign was meant to be official in some way, but a way more messy and boring campaign got added instead. Enough about Coldstream's awfulness and more about Dead Before Dawn's awesomeness. If I were to talk about every small detail this campaign has to offer, then I would be here all day, and I've got a tier list to finish, so I will go over the more notable ones. There is a chance that the path will change in chapter 2, where sometimes you can go straight to the safe room, while in other attempts you need to fix the AC on the roof in order to progress, and like every hard event, there will be a hefty amount of loot as compensation for your efforts. Chapter 3 is by far the most interesting chapter and the hardest as well. The main idea behind chapter 3 is to seal every entrance of the mall, but doing so is quite a challenge. The first entrance event reminds me of Yama's generator event, because they are quite literally the same. You need to hold an objective while your teammates cover you, and the bile bomb proves to be OP once again, because you only need one to flawlessly close this entrance. On the way to the second entrance, you pass a small gun shop which is closed, but there is a small chance that the keycard spawns in the side room with all these danger markings, and once you're inside, make sure to not shoot any glass, as that will trigger the anti-theft alarm, which attracts a horde. The second entrance event is a bit different. Now you don't have to hold a button, but instead wait for the shutters to close normally. But here's the catch. The Crossroads Mall is awaiting its 1 millionth visitor, and right now over 999,950 visitors have passed through the main door. Now if you let more than 50 infected in, the mall computer will set up the congratulations event, which is so incredibly loud that it attracts a tank to your location. So yeah, do whatever you can to not let 50 infected get through. But get this, if you, aka the player, step through the door, then it will also add 1 to the counter, so make sure you stay away from the entrance. Once again, a bile bomb almost nullifies this whole event. After you reboot the server, this dumbass boomer will explode if you get close enough to the bank doors, and then it's just straight to the safe room, just to realize the author dragged the section out by turning this section into kettle pans. Before continuing the journey in the mall, you have to go through the employee complex, which is more like a maze as there aren't any graffiti arrows present in the area. At some point, you will come across this crazy shop owner who thinks we are infected and proceeds to blow up the path leading to his shop, and now you gotta take the long way, and the section can get chaotic at times. I will let this clip speak for itself.
It's down. Oh man. Woo! Let's put it behind us. We good, y'all.
And then there's the parking lot. This event is way harder than it looks, as the infected never stop coming. Even when there's a guaranteed tank spawn on the upper floor, they don't stop coming, and it somehow gets worse because this area of the parking lot is almost pitch black, so there's another reason to panic. Also, don't try to brute force this section, because there are enough supplies to make it slow and steady to the final area, which is illuminated at the very least. After waiting for a bit, Hank comes to the rescue, and then you can give these freaks a proper goodbye.
You know this one?
Before I'm gonna end off this section, I will go over some fun details I forgot to mention. One example are the various radios scattered across the campaign, which broadcast news segments which tells what the situation is around the world, and gets crazier the further you go into the campaign. Maybe I should do a separate video on these. There are a lot of messages on the walls throughout the campaign, which are nice additions. And did I mention the custom music pack that comes with this campaign? I personally think that the Bloody Moors has the best soundtrack, but this is a close second, as the pack replaces almost every vanilla sound effect, like special infected themes, the song that plays when you finish a chapter, and the ambience is also spot on. As for my placement, this is definitely S tier material, and I will say it again, this is what Dead Center should have been from the very beginning. I'm gonna be completely honest here, I haven't played this campaign ever since I completed it, which is approximately 2 years ago. The reason of which is that this campaign crashes so often because of its large file size, and unfortunately there isn't an optimized version of this campaign like Chernobyl's. Also add in the fact that this campaign has 6 maps, which is a first for this tier list. Also apologies in advance as some of the textures look very crisp. I had to play on low detail, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to get the footage you are watching right now. According to some guy heard on the radio in the first chapter, this campaign takes place in Borden City, which is situated in Pennsylvania. This campaign starts out as a more rural campaign with its very natural aesthetics, and then slowly turns into your typical Left 4 Dead 1 city campaign. Except it's not that typical, as the campaign has a few unique events in store for you. One of which is another early escape. But when the chopper comes closer, the pilot becomes more infected, and as a result loses control of the vehicle when he arrives at the scene and decides to nuke this building. Another unique event is this movie theater event, where the computer malfunctions and you have to cut down the power wire, except you have to do it with this very specific fire axe. Even if you had one prior, it won't work. And after you cut down the power, you are stripped away from your reliable melee weapon for a couple of seconds, just to pick up the axe again to break the wall to the safe room. Immediately after leaving the safe room, you are met with a scavenge part. But, unlike every other scavenge part so far, this one isn't that bad, as there are no hordes that spawn during the scavenge, so consider this one of the only good scavenge parts to ever exist. Except this is a multi-part scavenge event, as you need to find supplies on the next stop, which are all guarded by alarms if you attempt to break the glass to get to the crates. On another note, this trucker drives like an absolute lunatic, and he unfortunately meets his end as you arrive at the church which holds the safe room. And this is quite a unique safe room, as you are being forced into a vault that is guarded by a tank upon arrival. And here's the main issue I have with this campaign. The custom tank models just make your client crash, so I guess this older footage has to do the job of showing how this fight goes down. And here comes the main attraction of the campaign, the school building. I would really love to say that I like this segment, but it gets dragged out because the entire building is flooded and thus halves your movement speed unless you stand on some of the objects that lie in the water. And if you're attempting this on expert, then this section is a killer, as the way forward is blocked by the twins, better known as a guaranteed dual witch spawn. So I suggest bringing 2 people that know how to crown them. Or just let a bot crown them instead, lol. After you make it out of that hellhole, you now need to complete either the shortest or longest finale, depending on your luck. You see, instead of simply holding out on one position or scavenging gas cans, you need to scavenge vaccine containers left by Sita in the green tents. And get this, you need 3 containers and kill the tank if there's one present to escape. But there are well over 10 Sita tents scattered across the field, and the container spawns are randomized on each attempt. I know it says 4 containers, but just like in Splash Mountain, the first one is free on every attempt. And that's the end of this disaster of a campaign. This was an absolute hell to record because I lived in constant fear that my client would crash at any given moment. Also, this campaign's vibe is very dark, gritty and depressing. I mean, just look at this part. It just screams out negativity, and I simply don't get why people like the Left 4 Dead 1 aesthetic in the first place. Yes, I know Left 4 Dead 2 is way different compared to Left 4 Dead 1, but come on! I played this game to have fun, not to be weighed down by gloomy scenery. This campaign may be some players' personal favorite, as it is the 3rd most subscribed to custom campaign on the Steam Workshop, but for me it's just above average. Alright, what's next in the list? Oh great heavens. This campaign is awesome! And also very difficult. If you want to test your skill and teamwork, then you come here. The total amount of infected you can come across during a full playthrough of this campaign can rack up pretty easily to 4,000, and even 5,000 in some situations. Just like Back to School, this is another gloomy Left 4 Dead 1 campaign, but the author executed it way better and the intensity of this campaign goes through the roof. This campaign is unique in a way where every chapter has a holdout event before you enter the safe room to go to the next chapter. But funnily enough, this campaign has 6 holdout events and I will be talking about them in their respective chapter. Chapter 1 can be summarized into one word, and that is claustrophobia, until you stumble upon this small open area and then you are met with the first holdout event, which can be easily cleared with any throwable, but the most optimal one is the Molotov because the infected come from only one side. But don't forget to sometimes wallbang some of the infected behind the metal door to not get sandwiched in between the incoming zombies. And shortly after that event, you arrive at the first big holdout. You just know the event is going to be a dopamine rush when you hear this playing when you push the button. Now this is what I call fun. Blasting down zombies from the high ground with the overpowered minigun turret. Seriously, why is this thing so much better than the 50 cal turret? Also, don't be afraid to use the explosive barrels or a throwball if the situations go south. Chapter 2 is centered around the catacomb section, but you get to stock up on plenty of supplies before venturing down there. But right as you are about to enter the catacombs, you need to break the barricades before continuing forth.
Reloading!
Well, they weren't lying with that haunted place graffiti. Luckily, you don't need a melee to break these planks, but I still suggest using your secondary to save some bullets, as this campaign also suffers from low ammo pile spawns. The haunted aesthetic increases as the place gets darker the further you get, and did I mention the ambience in this chapter? Let's just say I get goosebumps every time I have to go through this place. There are also the most random things, like how in the hell did a car get here? Luckily this chapter isn't that long as the safe room is just up this flight of stairs. Son of a bitch, I forgot that there's still a mandatory holdout event. It's harder than chapter 1's because moments before the hordes come, the lights just decide to turn off. And if that wasn't difficult enough, how about a guaranteed tank spawn with oncoming hordes during the boss fight? Because we are such big fans of that kind of gameplay. Yeah, this difficulty spike is a real killer, so my piece of advice is to find the tank first and set him on fire so you could at least see the upcoming danger. Now we're finally out of that damn place, and then the thing that haunts this section makes itself present. But weirdly enough, it wasn't the same creature as the one you saw at the entrance of the catacombs. Make sure to visit the small gun room before heading to the safe room for some extra supplies because you are gonna need them. The difficulty keeps ramping up the more we progress through the campaign, with chapter 3 being the first real test. The idea behind this chapter is to lower a lift so you can make it to the surface, but the power switch is all the way up there, so it's time for another mandatory side quest. Also make sure to grab any gas can along the way because you're gonna need them to make the holdout easier. I know I keep saying that this event is hard while it looks quite easy in the background footage, but that's because Lewis and Zoe are wielding tier 3 weapons, namely 2 M60s. If you wanna know how hard this event really is, then I suggest watching my duo expert completion video as the real difficulty is showcased in there. Back on topic, this holdout is pretty long, but it's indicated when it's about to end when the lights suddenly shut off. And then it's a quick sprint upwards. One thing you will realize is that the safe route isn't directly near a main holdout event, but there's still a small section that demands all attention, otherwise you have to do it all again if you fail. Chapter 4 starts with a small holdout event like the one in the catacombs, but this one is way easier. Finally a breath of fresh air. We're not longer buried deep, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, that was a terrible joke. The campaign was always somewhat claustrophobic, but this is the opposite. Everything is wide open, so now people with agoraphobia get their turn to shit themselves. For the unaware ones, agoraphobia is the existential fear of open areas. And the open areas don't make for very good gameplay, as zombies can just rush you from every direction. And it's pitch black outside. There's another reason to panic. Great, another holdout event, but now it's in an open area, so prepare for trouble. But luckily there's an ammo pile at your convenience, and the pile bomb also helps out a ton. Where are we now, you might ask? Well, the best way I can describe it is that you're in a maze where the walls just decide to move on their own. Every time you hear this sound play, then a wall has moved, may it be in front or behind you. The others saved the hardest holdout for last. Unlike every holdout so far, there isn't an ammo pile available, so I hope you manage your ammo leading up to this point. Also, gas cans are your best friend here. Just make sure to bring them along when you're transitioning through the doors, and if you didn't bring any can, don't be afraid to use a Molotov if you fought a tank already. You will thank yourself later. Luckily there's an ammo can after the event, so make sure to clean up any stragglers after you leave the door section. Funnily enough, I didn't fear chapter 4 when I needed to gather footage for this section of the video. It was this chapter instead. The indoor section isn't that bad, but what follows after is the big problem. Instead of a difficult holdout event, it's a motherfucking scavenge event. And you need to collect 20 gas cans in multiplayer to complete the campaign. This is probably the biggest difficulty spike I've ever seen in a custom campaign. I know it says that I only need 10, but that's because single player mode cuts the needed gas cans of every scavenge finale in half. The gas cans are very spread apart, there aren't that many supplies, and the hordes are constant, even when a tank spawns. And if you take too long, which you will, then there will be 2 tanks on the next encounter. So yes, this is by far the most brutal scavenge finale I ever completed, both on advanced and expert difficulty. And with all that said, I still love this campaign to this day, and it was my all-time favorite for a long time, until a certain other campaign took that spot rather easily. But what campaign that might be is for a different episode. Buried Deep is the ultimate skill checker, and it still holds that status after all these years. The aesthetics were always on point, as well as the soundtrack. I forgot to mention this, but every event has its own set of music, and they're all very intense, with my favorite theme being the Horde theme by a long shot. Someone should make a separate add-on of it so I can always have a piece of Buried Deep with me. This is an easy S tier, and because it doesn't crash as easily as Daybreak does, Buried Deep will take its place at the very top of the tier list. I wonder how long it will take for a different campaign to take its place. Leave your predictions down below. No play, no gain. I'm about to gain some serious shit then. This is Dead Air but reimagined, and it comes with the bright Left 4 Dead 2 aesthetic. This campaign is the third most subscribed to item on the Steam Workshop, which I find weird because nothing stands out and makes me think along the lines of, wow, I should never unsub from this campaign after I completed it. Well, there are some unique elements in the campaign, so let's go over them, shall we? The first chapter is special in a way where it takes a long time until you get your hands on a primary weapon. Luckily, there are some weapons in the Home Depot. No wait, the Gnome Depot. Nice one, author. Another nice addition to the campaign is the small dealership, which you don't see often while playing customs. Chapter 2 is definitely the most interesting, as it takes you through this set of apartments which you need to navigate through to just get to the other side of a fence. Then you're met with an overrun save room, and then you're suddenly in a music studio after a small rooftop section. And then there's the big one, blowing up a radio tower to make a bridge. Peak vandalism right here. How I like to tackle this event is to hold the staircase so the zombies can only come from two sides that are in your field of view. After crossing the gap, you fall down several floors to end up in a funny place with some funny witches. The general strategy here is to rush forward, but there's loot in some of the side rooms where the witches reside in, and the bots tend to go in there. And let's just say, things won't go smoothly when that happens. Luckily, the save room isn't that far from the place, but this has got to be the worst gameplay design ever. I could have theoretically survived if I had a shotgun, but I had a rifle instead, and the team shotgunner went down first, so we were doomed from the start. On the upside, the seaside harbor section is pretty chill, and you can even spot the place where the rescue vehicle is located. But first, you have to cross this bridge. Hey, where's that truck going? Get your ass back here, boy! Wow, he even raised the bridge. What an asshole. The way to the bridge is blocked, so you're forced to take an alternative path, and the bridge is a crescendo event, and if you're unlucky like I am, there's even a tank waiting for you at the end of the bridge. So you better raise it again, or you'll have to deal with incoming hordes while there's a tank roaming around the scene. The finale is something different. The main problem isn't that the plane has an empty tank, but the hangar doors simply won't open because the power is cut off. The place isn't far away, but it's a bloody scavenge event, except it's really simple. All the gas cans are in the same place, but you do need to carry them through a tight pad, so be careful not to accidentally let them slip through the railings. After filling up the generator, you are forced to fight a regular finale tank, so no biggie. Now you can put the power back online, and then it's a simple return to the hangar to open the bitch up. Except the second finale tank is still waiting for you, but there is a tier 3 weapon at your convenience at this truck parked outside the hangar. After the tank is dead, you have to hold out for a bit longer until the plane is ready to take off, and that's the end of this Dead Air remake. And it was a pretty good one, as I find Dead Air to be one of the better Left 4 Dead 1 campaigns. So this is a solid above average custom campaign. but why it's the most subscribed to custom will still remain a mystery to me, as there are clearly better customs out there. If you can't come up with a banger idea for an unforgettable custom campaign, then you can always give map porting a try, and that's exactly what this section is about. This author ported the entire Ravenholm chapter from Half-Life 2 into Left 4 Dead 2 and tried to balance it out to make it an enjoyable experience. This might be a war crime of its own, but I never played Half-Life 2, so my knowledge about this map was limited when I completed this campaign, so my apology if I missed out on something. A fun thing I like to do with these Half-Life 2 ports is to use the Gordon Freeman loadout, aka the Spaz shotgun with the crowbar melee. Personally, I don't like using melees with shotguns because I can't eliminate upcoming danger from long ranges, and the Deagle so happens to be my favorite secondary by a long shot, but I couldn't miss it for this one time. I was getting off topic, back to the matter at hand. I think this is one of the better map ports, both aesthetic and gameplay wise, but it kinda sucks that you always need to be prepared to fight a tank in a compact area, but I do like the added challenge. There are also some events here, but luckily no scavenge events to be found in this campaign, but the most notable one is a train yard crescendo event, because I found that way more infected spawn during this event than any other so far, but nothing beats Coldstream's crescendo events if you get what I mean. My favorite chapter of the campaign has to be the mines, because I've already grown tired of every campaign with buildings, and you don't get to go through enough caves in Left 4 Dead 2. The finale is also quite challenging, but if you can hold out at the 50 cal turret, then you should be fine until the tanks come. And also watch out for the cars that they can fling, otherwise it's straight back to the safe room for another attempt at the finale. This finale also spawns in 2 tanks at the second encounter, just to make sure that you always stay vigilant, but the most difficult about the finale is getting to the escape train. What you could do is prematurely go to where the train stops, so you don't have to deal with the tank that spawns at the entrance to the warehouse. Now I said that this is one of the better map ports, but I've played better campaigns, and this one isn't that spectacular, so it's pretty mid in my honest opinion. Every campaign up until now have been on the ground, with some exceptions taking place underground, but Diescraper changes that up by reaching for the sky. As the name suggests, the authors implemented an entire skyscraper to a Left 4 Dead 2 campaign, but you don't spawn over there. Instead, you start in an apartment complex like in No Mercy and have to make your way to the building while passing through a small military outpost for some extra supplies to make the climb a bit more tolerable. The 2 chapters that don't take place in the skyscraper is just your typical city campaign with an underground parking lot section, the best goddamn burger tank Nick has ever been in, a small crescendo event at the military outpost, and a quick holdout event while you wait for the elevator to enter the beast. Now I had imagined the skyscraper to be a bit less ruined, but the army is bombing everything like usual, so now I made myself look like an absolute moron for saying that. Moving on from the cubic offices, I finally get to see a non-destroyed bit of the skyscraper, and I love it. This holdout can turn into a disaster as the window behind the turret is shattered, so watch out for chargers, and then it's a rapid dash to the alarm after the shutters have opened, and look, the safe room is just a couple of ladders away. How convenient. Hell, even the bots know their way around these parts of the campaign. Some of the finales have been very creative so far, and this one's no different, as some new gimmicks have been added. The first one you will notice from the bat are the ammo boxes with limited supply. But don't worry, the ammo box has 3 uses and there are 2 more of those spread around the top suites. Aside from those wacky additions, this is your standard holdout event, with 2 waves of hordes and tanks respectively. Or is it? After the second tank encounter, you get the option to turn on the helipad spotlights so Virgil gets there faster, but this has its downside. If you were to hold out like normal, then you would already be at the helipad and make a quick escape as soon as the heli's door opens. But when you choose to go for the optional event, then you're still in the room with the switch when the helicopter arrives, and normally when the escape vehicle arrives, a tank will spawn and then you gotta rush to the helipad with a wild tank on the loose, and you gotta find the way back. I only suggest doing this optional event if your entire team is prepared and if you know the correct path to safety. This might be an underrated take, but I like campaigns that progress upwards, like if you're climbing a mountain. Maybe that's another reason why I like Buried Deep's first to third chapter. And here I am glazing Buried Deep again. Fantastic. Diescraper is in short an awesome campaign with a unique setting in the 2 last chapters that I'd like to see implemented into more future customs. Oh god, here's another big one. Buried Deep sequel is what I like to call it. I know it isn't made by the same person, but both campaigns give the same vibe and have 5 chapters with 3 out of 5 being indoors. As the name implies, the first chapter's woods are very dark, pitch black even. This is exactly the reason how some campaigns can drain the fun, because I still want to see what's happening in front of me, so I can prevent taking damage that I will need for harder sections. Luckily there are some bright spots with extra supplies, and I gotta say, the ammo box model looks amazing. I wish I could use it in other campaigns as well. Moving on from the forest, you are met with a crescendo event that doesn't end until you reach the entrance to the mines, which is indicated by these fences. And here start the indoor sections of the campaign. Crazy how much illuminated the indoors is compared to the outside. I would also like to quickly complain about this section because you can't go back once you drop down, and that can be troublesome if a tank spawns right before you arrive at the safe room. The second chapter slowly transitions from a natural setting to a more gritty industrial look. Why? Well, it will all make sense soon. The first half of this chapter feels more like a maze, but you will find your way eventually, and then you gotta descend into this weird pipe section, and then you arrive at a double crescendo event. If that sounded weird, then well, I just couldn't find the correct words for it, but I'll explain. After you turn on the power to open the door, constant hordes will spawn until you open the door, but here's a catch. If you open said door, an alarm will go off which spawns yet another constant set of hordes. It all makes sense in the end. Also make sure not to touch the green waste on the floor because radiation equals bad. It's hard to find an explanation for these set of rooms. Like, what the hell am I supposed to call this? Oh yeah, the laser does massive amounts of damage, so make sure you cross quickly. And after that interesting section, it's through some more industrial looking sewer areas before reaching the safe room. And why has everything been a maze so far? The heavy industrialism gets turned into sci-fi as now we set foot into Athena Laboratories property. Like, holy moly, how big do you want your lab to be, my guy? At one point you will enter this vent, which might not sound so bad, but what you may not know is that you cannot shove any infected while in vents, so surely there won't be sudden horde event, right? Alright then, I shouldn't have said anything. If you think the wait out the hordes in the bloody vent room is a good idea, then I highly suggest to move on, as the hordes won't stop coming until you get out of the vents. After that it's more laboratory rooms until you reach the canteen. If only Coach was here instead. After you enter the server room, it's through some more vents and tight corridors until you notice that you're back in the main hall and you reach closer to the main objective of this chapter, which is destroying the core of the facility. After vandalizing that piece of equipment, the main alarm goes off and suggests to evacuate before you get blown to bits, and you only have 2 minutes to leave, and the countdown starts as soon as you destroy the core, so no time to waste. I also suggest waiting at the big gate before going further until everyone caught up, otherwise you won't survive the last event of this chapter. As soon as you pass under the gate, endless hordes will spawn with some special infected as well, so don't mess up, otherwise you will have to go through the entire lab again. A fun fact is that in previous versions of this campaign, if you entered the elevator sooner than expected, then the special outro cutscene won't play and you will just fall to your death when starting the next chapter. But this has long been fixed, so the small cutscene will always play at the end of the chapter. Chapter 4 doesn't start in the safe room, as there were no supplies in the evac elevator when you entered it, so you have to make a steep descent before reaching the much needed supplies. Continuing the trend of climbing long ladders, you eventually end up in, well, this place. Apparently we're in prison. An otherworldly prison, if you may. At some point you will reach this room where you have to call in an elevator. Nothing seems to happen at first, but then the lights suddenly turn off and all the gates open up, which could either send out a horde or 2 tanks. Luckily you can enter these long hallways, so the tank fight isn't that difficult. Shortly after you pass the gap, you will enter the gritty prison, which feels like yet another maze. I'm surprised Phaeton didn't go for Darkwood Maze as the campaign's official name. A lot of time later you will reach another crescendo event, but with a twist. The path to the alarm isn't directly available and you need to open each door leading up to it, and the infected keep coming, but they can only come from one side, so a Molotov will do wonders here if you can throw it in an optimal spot. Oh look, now we can leave this godforsaken place at last. And hey look, someone familiar. Don't recognize him? Well, now you do. Also, its sword was also shown twice before arriving at the event. After the rather long elevator trip, you just need to cross the train yard and there's the last safe room. Thank God the last chapter doesn't have a maze, otherwise I would have questioned my existence. Now we're in some sort of catacombs. Almost like buried deeps, except these look like actual catacombs you would come across in real life. Finally outside again, and it's not pitch black? What more could I ask for? The church holds a unique element which I like to call the blender. If you turn on the thing and throw a bile bomb towards the blade, any zombie that touches it just dies for free without any added effort. Fighting tanks during the finale can get awkward at times because there are some water puddles around the area that could extinguish an ignited tank. Besides those 2 elements, it's just an ordinary holdout finale like any other campaign. Oh look, this outer cutscene is pretty cool, especially that hunter who's ripping the shit out of someone or something. As for the ranking, wait! Stop! We're not done yet. Just like any other high quality campaign, there are some secrets present in Darkwood, but not any ordinary secret like hidden rooms with ordinary loot. No! The author found that idea lame and added 4 secret melee weapons, with 2 of them being exclusive to this campaign, and there's at least 1 secret in every chapter. There isn't a secret melee in the forest, but I thought this secret area is kinda funny. The first hidden melee is in the underground, and it's somewhat indicated by this writing on the wall in the beginning of the chapter. Now what would the sea in this chapter be? Well, obviously it's this piece of water near the end. And would you look at that, a warp pipe inside of my favorite zombie shooter game. That's not it, however, as you now need to show off your parkour skills to reach the end. You're not stuck down here, as there's a give up button on the side of the tower that just returns you to the campaign, but if you made it to the top, then you will be rewarded with the lava machete, as I like to call it. Its gimmick is simple. Every zombie you hit with it gets set on fire. Yes, even tanks take full afterburn from the melee, but when will you ever be meleeing a tank? I also like the SFX that comes with the weapon, and it even glows. The second melee is located in the lab. At some point you will come across a door with a stay out marking on it, and if you try to open the door, a tank will come out, but you have some time to prepare before he comes out. After that you grab the keycard to open this door, and then you are met with 4 pedestals on which you need to place 4 gnomes. Where do I find the gnomes, you may ask? In the save room of the chapter, of course. You can jump on this air duct and go into the ventilation to reach the room where 4 fellas are waiting to be transported. After depositing each one, the floor opens up into whatever this is. There's also some messages being sent through chat, but I don't know what to make up from it. It's probably a reference to some movie, but don't ask me any questions about it. You can see the melee floating in the air, but it's out of reach, so you'll have to do some fighting before getting it. The fighting sequence is the same as a standard holdout finale, but there are 2 tanks on the second encounter, and the use of Molotovs is forbidden, as they just disappear when you try to pull them out. So you will have to ignite them with either the explosive bells or the aforementioned lava machete. Great job! Now you have unlocked arguably the best melee in the campaign. It swings rather slowly, but did you know that this mace can stun tanks? Totally balanced, by the way. To be fair, this is the hardest melee to obtain, so it's justified, I guess. The melee in the prison is more simple to obtain. Before heading into the elevator, there's a hidden door on the outer ring with a pyramid on it, and after you ride the crusher to the ceiling, you'll see an ominous looking portal that teleports you to an island with a maze. Alright, here's the solution, good luck. After eventually reaching the end of the maze after 15 minutes, you will see the melee on a rock that resembles a glove with claws coming out of it every time you swing. This melee doesn't have a special attribute other than it being a sharp melee that swings fast and having a weird swing pattern, but once again, the S-effects are pretty cool. And finally, the last melee is of course in the catacombs. Before continuing, head back up the set of planks and drop down here to enter this suspiciously tall wall, and inside you will find a golden goblet. Just like the glove, this melee isn't that special, but it does have the funny frying pan impact sound, and it also swings faster than the pan. It also gives increased knockback to ragdolls, but that's just cosmetic. Easily the funniest melee of the campaign. Now I said that only 2 of the 4 melees are exclusive to this campaign. That's because both the mace and the glove already exist in a different campaign, namely Curse of Lazar Castle, which I will be covering in the far future. So there's another reason to keep watching this series. And now finally, as for my ranking, this is close to being my all-time favorite campaign, but I have more history with Buried Deep, so I will be placing it below Buried. Also because this campaign isn't as difficult as Buried Deep. It's a shame these two aren't connected to each other. Or are they? Well, that section took longer than it should have been, but Bloodproof isn't that long, so let's go over it quickly. Bloodproof is centered around a small town aesthetic with 3 chapters to play on, but for some reason, hordes seem to be always present, but that might be because I've let nearly every car alarm go off. Or well, the bots also tend to shoot car alarms. That's at least one thing to keep me busy during a generic campaign. Chapter 1 is the least interesting, but you do get enough zombie killing to not make you quit the campaign out of pure boredom. Chapter 2 spices things up with a church event, letting you know it exists by the alert message saying that it's almost 8 o'clock, and shortly after, the chaos begins once again. This chapter also guides you through a small military checkpoint after exiting this nice looking park. However, the real deal starts in chapter 3. This event is similar to Coldstream's event, where the hordes come at you non-stop, but they always come from the front instead of jumping down from the high ground. And it also features a guaranteed tank spawn halfway through. But the author actually cared about game balance and made it so hordes won't spawn until the tank is dead. Another common Coldstream L. One thing that is absent from this event are ammo piles, so you are forced to pick up weapons from the ground, but I don't mind that unless I have a laser sight attached to my current weapon. The final holdout at the bunker can be a bit tricky because you are now in an indoor area and you first have to turn the power back on in order to call the evacuation elevator. Well, that was a lot of killing. But what if I told you that all of this wasn't necessary? You see, you can actually skip the whole event and just casually make it to the bunker without triggering a single horde or tank spawn. Not even a single special infected to be seen. I don't know if this exploit has been reported to the author, but hey, if you found that finale too hard, somehow, then now you can still have a custom campaign completion under your belt without any issue. Both the gameplay and scenery combined make this a pretty mid campaign, but it's still fun as a quick boredom buster. We're back to ranking a campaign that's based off a real location. The gang is now forced to survive in one of the largest cities in Spain, namely Barcelona, but ruined. The authors of the campaign really went all out on this one because the quality is nothing to laugh at. I like the custom assets that got added in the campaign, like these custom boss models and the football zombies. Also in the intro of the campaign, there are some familiar faces present in the church, like Father Gregory and Dr. Breen from Half-Life 2. The first chapter is mostly cramped indoor apartment sections, which can make a tank fight rather awkward. There's also a swimming pool close to the end, which is a rare sight in custom campaigns. There's this funny detail in chapter 2's safe room where there aren't any supplies in the safe room because there were other survivors before we arrived, as indicated by this bit written on the wall that tells us to go screw ourselves. But you know what they say, karma can be a real bitch sometimes, as the group didn't manage to get that far. Also keep in mind that there's no ammo spawn at this checkpoint, so a weapon switch is mandatory, or you can use your secondary if you're confident enough, but I can assure you it will take a while before you come across an ammo pile in this chapter. Instead of a claustrophobic apartment section, you are being forced onto the streets, and then you can see the first landmark of the campaign, which is a giant roundabout, and the arenas de Barcelona is also to be seen in this campaign. Sadly, you don't go on the roundabout, but head into the subway for a crescendo event. The authors also thought that it would be funny to make a random ambulance drop out of the ceiling. I survived this jump scare, but the bots didn't, and I assure you that I didn't have God mode on because cheating is for pussies. And yes, this background footage has been recorded on expert difficulty because I still had to repeat it on expert. A tank can also spawn in the previously mentioned crescendo event, but he kinda dies for free because 7 times out of 10 he falls into this deathbed below the subway car. So yeah, this event isn't that bad. After that event, it's a bit more killing through the subway network until you reach the save room. Now let's get to the fun part, chapter 3, which is the plane panic event. This is the same as the subway event, except the special infected spawn rate has been changed. For some godforsaken reason, they increased the spawn rate for a smoker in the first section, which I like to refer to as the highway section. And then after firing the howitzer, endless hunters will jump at you until you reach the end of this tunnel. Also make sure this doesn't happen to you, which just shows how big my unluck can be sometimes. Chapter 4 houses the main event and the hardest part in the campaign, which is none other than the Spanish siesta. Before the event starts, not a single infected will show up and there's a large amount of loot, guaranteed tier 3 weapons and laser sights. But don't take too long preparing though, as those bastards at the top are impatient like always and will just drop down. On the plus side, specials won't fall down. And there's the final rescue, at the National Museum of Art. I will be honest, this finale would be 3 times harder if it weren't for the tier 3 weapons, because the infected just keep on coming, even on the guaranteed tank spawn halfway up the stairs. Oh, and this path can also alter in between attempts. Nice addition for that extra replayability. When you're at the entrance of the museum, you can relax for a bit as the hordes will stop coming for a brief moment, and then the final sprint is ahead. You actually have to be lucky to reliably beat this, as there's a tank that spawns on the 2nd floor, but there's a small chance he falls down, which positions it behind you, and then you can start rushing like hell, instead of needing to fight it head on while zombies spawn in between. I also think this small interaction is cool, where the heli just sweeps its back blade towards you, nearly hitting you in the process, and then the campaign ends in a cinematic shot of the destroyed city. Much like Daybreak, this is a very polished city campaign featuring real-life landmarks, but unfortunately, not every campaign is perfect, as I think that chapter 1 is quite boring and the difficulty is inconsistent throughout the campaign. But it still is a very awesome campaign to play at the end of the day. This campaign shows that everything is possible in the Left 4 Dead 2 universe, because time travel is now a thing. The time travel adventure doesn't start right off the bat, but you are instructed to go to a secret military base, but before you head over there, you gotta stock up, because this journey will not be like anything you've seen so far. One complaint I have about chapter 1 is that the military base's floor is flooded, which increases the time it takes to complete the chapter, but it's relevant to the story this campaign is trying to tell, so I'll let it slide. You will get a small sneak peek for what you can expect in the next chapter by seeing this giant core of some sorts. What have these government scientists been up to? After a small holdout event, you end the chapter and now the real story may begin. After pressing the comically large red button, the startup process of the time machine has been set in motion. And I also laugh every time when the survivors just freak out whenever this cutscene happens. Oh right, I forgot to mention that there's custom dialogue throughout the whole campaign, just like Daybreak. I'm a big fan of it and it strengthens the plot. The portal is now open and the first area we appear in is the Wild West. This area isn't really that special, but it does give the correct vibe. Desert biome, wooden buildings, typical western population, seems about right. And there's the next portal, which leads to a sci-fi section, and in it is this spaceship, but unfortunately the survivors don't know how to fly the thing, so we'll just have to continue the journey on foot. There's also this room with a spinning hologram of the map you're currently situated in. The exit is through a prison cell's ventilation duct, and the next portal leads to an ordinary house. I don't know why, but it feels like I've seen this place before. It looks like we're stuck in a loop, but each time we loop, the house gets more haunted, and at some point there's a small jump scare which made me jump for no reason. Because I've already played this campaign before, but it was quite some time ago. The worst part about the house section is that you can't leave immediately, as the portal is closed and you have to hold out until the minigun did its job. Here's a little tip, you can just hold the corner of the hallway for an easy time holding out, and we're finally back to the real world. This doesn't last long however, as the next portal is across the street in a tattoo parlor. We've really gone too far back, as we're in the dark ages now, and with it comes the typical scenery like small houses, infected knights, and who could forget a good old castle in these times. There are also these little signs that tell you how the people back then would fight the infection. Nice one, Kyle. The next portal is in the small fisher hut and... what the hell? Is this section of the campaign left unfinished? Even the zombies got the alpha testing treatment and look screwed up. Nah, this area was made with the intention to look unfinished. There's also this weird thing that can happen where at the end of the elevator holdout, the bots enter the elevator but you get left behind and die to hurt trigger as you see the elevator ascend. After the elevator, there's a hidden switch which you can activate to reveal a secret room with extra loot if you can collect all the coins in the obby. New portal, new area. And what the hell is this supposed to be? I didn't sign up for any of this. Well, I guess we're in hell now, for exploiting the laws of time and space. This section can be summed up as just downright disgusting imagery, or as Coach would say,
Whoa! That there's some screwed up shit!
you can also just jump down the hole because there's a pool of water at the bottom. But you will hear additional lines of dialogue if you take the slow path instead of leaping off the platforms. The safe room is now just a small holdout event away, and now I can forget about that hellscape. The final chapter starts in the sewer. Very sanitary, I know. And there's the last holdout, a giant farmhouse in the middle of nowhere with a mysterious platform near the roof. I thought we left that sci-fi section a long time ago. There are also these infected? Call those freaks whatever you want. One regular holdout finale later, the rescue vehicle comes in the form of a UFO. So are we really getting rescued here? The author really did a phenomenal job of turning the paradox of time traveling into a fun experience. And the custom dialogue is also top notch. If it isn't in some random section, then there's cool dialogue in the save room. Although I'm more an extra large chapter enjoyer. I will be putting this gem into the awesome tier because that's how I would sum up Time to Die in one word.
But Dr. Cortex, to reach full power, we need not only your master crystal, but also the remaining slave crystals from the surface. How do you expect to retrieve them when we don't have any Earthbound operatives left?
You fool! Do you think I'm unaware of the situation?
But Dr. Cortex, the vortex is not ready. We have no idea what it could do.
You will do as I say.
If you got tired from all the post-apocalyptic themed campaigns, then this is the campaign for you. This isn't a direct port of a specific Crash Bandicoot game, but some parts are from various titles combined, and the plot is taken from Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. This campaign has 6 maps to offer, and every chapter has a unique boss fight, which are either at the end or halfway through the chapter. The author introduces a new gimmick with destroyable crates that contain loot inside them, with the regular boxes containing guns, question mark boxes having grenades and healing items in them, and the armored double box holds a tier 3 weapon, but it takes a few more hits to be broken. There are more variants of boxes, but the most notable one is the Nitro box, which deals huge amounts of damage to anything in its radius. Also make sure to break every single box in the chapter you're playing on, as you will be rewarded greatly if you do so. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about each chapter. After a brief intro with Dr. Cortex, the fun already starts as you spawn in a sewer with a horde being triggered immediately. You could think someone left these chainsaws behind. This section is a real hack and slash with boxes in between until you reach the first boss, Tiny Tiger. See the problem here? If you were to play on expert, this area is too cramped as there are hordes while the boss is active, which is just a reskinned tank. Moving on from the sewer, you enter a castle where the lights just feel like turning off every once in a while. Also beware of the guillotines. Here's another gimmick introduced to you, which is the addition of Uka Uka, which will orbit around you for a while and kill every infected that touches the ring. And later on you will also come across Aku Aku, that heals you back up to full health when you step near it. One grateful thing about this campaign is that you don't instantly die when you fall off, but you instead take a small amount of damage for every fall. Chapter 2 starts out in the desert, and this is a calm section. Just make it across some rooftops while passing through some buildings, and eventually you will go through a closet to Antarctica. Now I've seen everything. Just like the desert, this is a pretty chill area. Okay, that was on complete accident, I swear. Oh look, it's the polar stop. This basically acts as a restock point, as you can get many things in here. Even a present when you destroyed every box in the previous chapter. There's even a slot machine for the enthusiastic gambler, but beware, there are equally as good as bad effects that you can get from the spinner, ranging from weapon upgrades to setting your health to 33 or spawning 3 witches. And for those asking, yes, if you are below 33 health and you get the combination, you will get healed back up to 33 health. Not far away from Polar Stop awaits the next boss encounter, namely Ripperoo. This fight is more annoying than difficult because the way you damage the boss is weird. You can't just shoot the thing with your traditional weaponry, but you need to time the fuse of these giant TNT boxes, which is harder said than done because Ripper is constantly on the move and his jump pattern changes with every phase. Oh, zombies also spawn constantly with the occasional horde whenever Ripperoo takes damage. With that nonsense out of the way, you make your way through this tropical area before reaching the next safe room. A nice addition for this section is to make the water damage you like the original games, but I guess some people would complain about it. This campaign certainly doesn't lack variety, as we're now at a fun fair. Make sure to take a peek inside every piece of infrastructure, as there will be always some free loot in them, especially the houses. Further ahead lies another castle with another polar stop, which means that a boss is nearby, and this time it's none other than Engine. In my opinion, Engine is the second hardest boss in this campaign, just by the sheer amount of chaos he brings. He flies over the arena and attempts to bomb you from his ship, all while big hordes are present, but you can use Uka Uka to your advantage in this situation. In order to defeat him, you have to shoot all the legs of his ship, which is of course easier said than done, because his ship moves rather swiftly and the legs have a significant amount of HP. After defeating that bozo, you take the elevator down to, well, I don't know what to call this place. It's dark, filled with falling hazards and these ominous monitors that display Cortex, who's just watching over you. After reaching the safe room, you're not out of this dark place yet, but you will eventually stumble upon the entrance of some Egyptian ruins. This place is also filled to the brim with traps, spike traps, arrow traps, slippery floors, cracks in the ceiling where zombies can drop down on you, and the list goes on, but the most intricate ones are at the end of the ruins. To proceed forwards, you need to press 2 buttons, which are guarded by 2 traps. To the left is a water section where you need to climb this water jet, while the face on the wall spits out nitro boxes, and the right side is guarded by flame-spitting Cortex statues. It's not a big deal if the traps took you down to low health, as there's another polar stop after the closed door. You probably know what happens next. Another boss encounter. And this time it's Pinstripe Potteroo's turn to be in the spotlight, and he's armed with a machine gun! It seems like he ditched his Tommy gun for this huge chunk of firepower. Hordes are also a common thing to occur during these boss events, but now they are a bigger problem as the play area is very small, because if you step outside of the green safe zone, you will be sprayed down by Potteroo's 50 cal. When his gun cools down, you may fill him up with lead at your will, and you gotta do this 3 times, moving closer to the boss every time a bar is taken out of his health. When you dealt with the mutated fiend, you have to drop down a hole he created when he died, which leads to Cortex's power plant. The only interesting thing to note during this section is that you can shoot the barrels that come at you, which is quite useful as the jumpy barrels are hard to dodge, but that might be a skill issue of my own. We're back at the castle of some sorts, and this looks to be a 2D inspired section as the entire right side is just an ocean of nothingness. When you enter the castle, there will be some traps waiting for you, and later on you will come across a door that won't open. The solution here is to turn the bat to the side of the door and then using the evolver ray to destroy it, but a horde will spawn the moment the door is reduced to atoms. And it's raining as well, so visibility is limited in this part of this chapter. After a while you will be in the castle's courtyard where another boss is ready to be taken down. Dr. Nitrous Brio is up next, and his gimmick is alarming and is the entire reason why expert is impossible. After Brio turns around, he will drink a concoction which turns him into a tank. But get this, he turned into a tank that's completely... You have to survive his onslaught for about 30 seconds until he slams you through the window back into the courtyard. Now how do you kill an invincible tank? Well, you have to lead him into this giant quote-unquote polar bear trap in the far right of the courtyard. Just stand on the pressure plate until he enters the cage and then bingo! And the final chapter has to take place in the Cortex Vortex. For the last chapter, you are tasked to destroy the crystals you collected during the campaign in order to stop the vortex from being activated. And halfway through the process, the final boss is awaiting you. The legend himself, who doesn't need an introduction. Dr. Neo Cortex. And this is the hardest fight of all the bosses because he shoots deadly projectiles from his radical ray gun. And you have to shoot down his shield first before you can damage him. And there are constant hordes throughout the entire fight. Like that didn't happen before. But for some reason, it feels like that there are way more zombie spawns during Cortex's fight than with the other supporting antagonists. When Cortex is defeated, he doesn't die but instead just leaves like nothing happened. Okay then, back to business. The rest of the crystals are located on the upper floor, and after destroying them, you have to shut down the vortex at the main console. And look who we have here. Cortex isn't done with you yet, as he stands there menacingly, but be careful. There are hidden lasers in the room that instantly kill you if you touch them. And dodging them is even harder as the gravity is decreased, so you have to airstrafe to correct your movement. And after reaching Cortex, you cross him with a 16-ton weight, which finally puts an end to his mischief. But the story doesn't end here quite yet, as you still need to escape from Cortex's space station by using the last escape pod. Finally back on Earth, now you may prepare yourself for the final holdout. The gang are the only survivors left on Earth, while the rest is infected. This holdout goes on for quite a while and the infected can spawn from anywhere, so my preferred spot is this bridge where the zombies can only reach you from both sides. After a good 3 minutes, the final cutscene triggers where a bunch of tanks show up at the property and killing the last survivors. Unfortunately, this campaign doesn't have a happy ending for the survivors. Not to brag or anything, but I could have totally killed all those tanks, you know. This is an absolute banger of a campaign and I heavily recommend you to play this with a group of friends. But sadly, the author didn't focus on balance this campaign around expert difficulty, so it doesn't reach the top that easily. A visit to the largest and most infamous research facility on the planet. This is a port that features parts from Half-Life 1, with a couple of additions from Opposing Force and Blue Shift. Judging by the crashed news chopper, this campaign takes place after No Mercy, although it wouldn't make any sense as Black Mesa is located in New Mexico. The author utilized the classic Valve aesthetic like in the original Half-Life and absolutely nailed it. The heal stations are also present in this campaign, which is justified by the amounts of extra infected that are roaming around. I won't go over each chapter individually as they all look the same and I don't want this section to be another 10 minutes long, so I'll go over the more noticeable things instead. There are multiple hazards scattered across the facility, with landmines and explosive barrels being the most common. Chapter 1 is the most boring because it doesn't have anything interesting to offer other than Danger Zone playing in the background when you come out the pipe, which is copyrighted music by the way, so I'll have to deduct some points for that. Chapter 2 has a scavenge event where you need to fuel up a tank in order to progress, and the gas cans are in a weird position, so it'll take longer than your usual scavenge. What follows after is a difficult crescendo event, as the path to the safe room is really confusing. One piece of advice is to shoot this electric post in advance so you don't have to do it in the heat of the moment. Also watch out for the landmines. The hordes do eventually stop when you enter the building, but the tank usually hangs out after you walk through the gate. And after that it's just through some more storage units and across the dam until you reach chapter 3, where this giant power reactor is located. In the meantime you can go through the most fun part of the campaign, where you can spray down zombies with a minigun while riding this cart before you arrive at the reactor. When you enter the reactor room, you are tasked to supply it with power, and it's nothing special, as you just need to press a few buttons. When the obligatory side quest is completed, you can now start up the thing and run like hell to the safe room. I forgot to mention this, but there is a giant death pit inside and around the reactor, and the author does intend on adding suicide charges to this section, either at the entrance or when you leave the reactor. Chapter 4 consists of mostly storage units, but there is this one place where you need to find keycards to open up the gate to flee the facility. But the problem is that the keycards don't have an outline, and they look like a bug, so it was hard to figure out their locations at first. Also be careful around this ladder, as it feels very clunky and can end the run if it decides to give up on you. There's also this trampoline thing in some spots, but this also has its own janky physics, so use them at your own risk. Oh shit! After stealing the armored truck and getting the hell out of there, you encounter the finale, which luckily isn't a scavenge finale, but it is still very difficult, as you need to make your way to the train at the other side of the desert. The path to the train also isn't a walk in the park, as some difficult tank spawns and extra objectives are in your way. At some point you need to find a keycard to open up the gate to the second part of the desert, but a tank will spawn when you open it, but you can gun it down with the 50 cal on the high ground. The best thing you can do is to leave any Molotov behind and use the other two, because they are more useful in this finale, and the only tank spawn is at the gate. Make sure you don't choke the last sprint to the train, otherwise you will have to sit through another 7-minute sprint to the evacuation zone. Man, what an explosive finale that was. Any Half-Life fan would love this campaign, but I haven't played any Half-Life title myself, but I did have an awesome time surviving Black Mesa's research facility. Video game maps are the most common thing to port to a different game, but what about a movie? And this campaign was the answer to that particular question. I haven't watched the series and I have very little knowledge about it, but the preview pictures from its Steam Workshop page were interesting enough to give this campaign a shot, but my apologies if I do get something wrong. The gang's journey starts in the mines of Moria, and the terrain already took a turn to the unique, because what the hell is this path I'm supposed to take? And the ladder section afterwards is also a hazard on its own, as smokers can easily grab you without you noticing them. At the top is another 3-way split, but there are tier 2 weapons at the end of the 2 corridors, but it spawns a special infected whenever you try to leave it. If you want to go for the auto shotgun, then a witch will fall down, which you need to crown in order to survive this encounter. And the corridor with the rifle spawns a jockey. When you drop down, you need to hold out in this room until you are told via chat that you need to run to the bridge of Khazad-dûm. This is a fairly standard crescendo event, but it's harder because the infected can come from everywhere, as this is a very open area. Halfway through you need to stand inside this protection ring. In short, this ring doesn't let any infected inside, but tank rocks can still pass through, so you better gun them down. When I first played this campaign, I didn't know what to do in this room, but you just need to stand on the staircase before a giant rock comes falling down and smashes the path leading up to the stairs. Afterwards the stairs starts moving and you have to stay on it, otherwise you would fall to your death. And I forgot to mention this, but those tanks back at the ring will continue to throw rocks at you while you are on the moving staircase. And also don't attempt to jump off early, as you won't make it. I learned that fact the hard way. You're now at the bridge, and then the director says that someone needs to be Gandalf and stand in the middle of the scene. I feel like I've seen this somewhere. After the 35 seconds, the player who is supposedly Gandalf dies and breaks the bridge, and the zombies shall not pass. This is supposed to happen, but to my knowledge, this event is broken in single player. Luckily, I still have this piece of footage to show you what is supposed to happen. Unfortunately, I just had to no-clip through the door in order to go forwards, but the door would normally open a while after Gandalf died. And now I'm wherever the hell this is supposed to be, but I'm willing to take a guess that we're in Mordor. Before entering the castle, a dragon will fly down, and don't go near, as you will take damage whenever you come in contact with it. The castle itself isn't all that interesting, but what lies behind it does catch my attention. But before you reach it, you need to climb this tower called Cirith Ürgol. God, I hope I didn't butcher that pronunciation. And pull a lever to open up the gate leading to Mount Doom. I hate the climb, as there will be rocks falling down that instantly kill you. Well, that doesn't make for fun gameplay. If you were to play with bots, then rest assured that they will all be dead when you reach the top. If you do make it in one piece, then you are in a very dangerous area, as the entire place is just a big death pit, just like the one in Black Mesa's reactor room. You do have to wait for a while before the action starts again, as this is the scene where the ring gets destroyed. When the background dialogue stops, then the hordes are coming at ya. With those hordes also come a lot of suicide charges, and if you haven't noticed it yet, the zombies only come from one side and the holdout area isn't too big, so if you do get charged, your survival chance is pretty much zero, and your teammates will probably also be propelled backwards by the same charger. When the ring is eventually destroyed, you are free to leave Mount Doom and head to the hardest chapter of the campaign, the battle for Helm's Deep. This has got to be the hardest finale to ever exist, at least in my opinion. You do get enough resources in the stable to stock up for the last battle. The entire finale is a giant holdout around the castle. The entire gimmick is that you don't get to hold out at a single spot, as the instructor commands you to fall back every once a while. In total, there are 6 phases that you need to survive in order to complete the finale. The first phase is at the gate, where the Left 4 Dead 1 survivors are there to help you. This phase isn't too bad, as all the infected spawn far away, so I recommend at least one person to run a sniper rifle. The gate collapses after some time has passed, and not long after, a message comes through chat that tells you to fall back, which marks the transition from phase 1 to phase 2. This is probably the hardest phase, as the area is very small, there's no ammo pile, extra supplies are absent, and the only guns that are laying around are 4 M60s and a scout sniper rifle. Now that doesn't sound too bad, but I forgot to mention that a tank spawns roughly every 30 seconds, and that's for the entire finale. Luckily this is the shortest phase, but you do have to fight 3 tanks in order to move to the courtyard of the castle. This phase is easier than the previous one, as you can easily fall to your death and the loot is scattered all over the place, but you do get some downtime before the infected storm the main gate. When the gate does fall, you now get to enter the castle, but the entrance is guarded by a witch of all things, so you have to crown the bitch before heading inside to restock. Phase 4 is probably the easiest one, as there is this conveniently placed 50 cal that covers the entrance where all the zombies will come from. But make sure not to overheat the gun. If it does happen, then I suggest throwing a Molotov at the entrance to at least prevent common infected to enter the keep. After the horses go insane in the stables, you can head upstairs to start the second last phase. This is also not too bad, because the zombies still come from only one side and they can be shot down easily by Molotov cocktails. And the tanks also don't stop coming. Still alive and kicking? Good. Now go to the top of the tower and wait for Gimli to use the horn. Then stock up for the last phase of the finale. Make sure you don't choke this phase, because if you die, you have to go back all the way back to the start. And let me remind you that this finale takes around 30 minutes from start to finish. It's almost a campaign of its own. You are now back at the destroyed gate from phase 1, and it turns out the old man is still alive, and he draws all the common infected to himself, so you can focus down the special infected and tanks. Well, that was one hell of a finale gameplay loop if I've ever seen one. After completing this campaign, I thought to myself that I should have played a proper PvE shooter than surviving this unbalanced amalgamation. As for the ranking of this port, This is an above average experience just because of the sheer difficulty this campaign has to offer, and it's definitely not expert friendly as demonstrated by the various insta-killing hazards and seemingly endless tank spawns in the finale. I would have bumped up the placement if it was more bot friendly, but I suggest bringing a group of players for this campaign. I promise this is the last one for today, so please stay a little bit longer. This is the sequel to Dark Blood, as mentioned in the small intro to the campaign. When you first spawn in, you notice that the group has been split up into 2 pairs of 2. Now that is what I call originality. The main gimmick behind Fallen Death is that every path in each chapter besides the finale can be altered, so this is the closest you can get for a campaign with infinite replayability. But with this upside comes a downside that the chapters can feel like a maze if you're playing for the first time. For example, I can bet 20 bucks that first time players will not know what to do at the train crossing event after they shot down the electricity box. But I will go into more detail about that event later. The first chapter is a more general area where you have to go through some warehouses, sewers and a junkyard to reach the safe room. There's also a small crescendo event at the gas station, so there's a heads up, you can thank me later. Chapter 2 is by far the most confusing. Like I said a bit earlier, the event in this chapter is confusing as it comes with no further instructions after shooting the electricity box. One time you just go straight ahead and immediately end up in the forest where you need to be to progress, but if the train is blocking your path, then you need to go back and follow the little creek, and then you will go into the drainage pipe which leads to a small secret laboratory. Personally, I like it better when I get this part instead of the forest because I get more supplies for the upcoming event. What event, you may ask? This event requires you to cut down a tree, but there's a car with an alarm on the other side of the fence, and there's no way of avoiding this. Worst of all, the alarm's effect lasts until the end of the chapter, so I do recommend grabbing one of the chainsaws lying around in the lumber yard. And don't worry about losing your precious melee, as there will be one waiting for you in the safe room. Speaking of melee weapons, there's a custom one to be found in the mines, and of course it's a pickaxe. Nothing too complicated to see here. This chapter alone might be the sole reason why I still remember this campaign exists, as the caves here look very natural generated. Don't forget the added cave ambience like sudden echoes and water droplets, and you got yourself a pretty decent cave section. However, with these mines comes the problem that you are forced to fight a tank in cramped areas if you do happen to run into one. In that case, make it a quick assassination, otherwise you will get sent back to the surface. There's also this elevator event, but nothing unremarkable to be spotted here. But when you exit the elevator, there is this room with a ton of explosive barrels, so I suggest unholstering your primary weapon for a small bit. And then there's the finale, which luckily isn't the most generic thing ever, as there's an immediate tank spawn after you leave the elevator, and then the real finale starts. You have to fix the cable car mechanism to get off the mountain, but strangely enough, the models for the gears you need are gnomes, and you have to carry them all the way to the station in order to put the quote-unquote gears in place. To make it myself a whole lot easier, I always go for the one at the very bottom and then make my way to the 2 that are closer to the station. After you got them all, you still need to weld them to the mechanism, and now it's just a holdout until the car arrives. When you initially step into the cable car, it doesn't start descending, as you will notice an outline around a button near the fixed mechanism. You got that right, this is a sacrifice finale, ironically named after the campaign it got introduced in. But this finale is kinda weird when you are soloing this campaign, as the glow will disappear after you leave the cable car, but it randomly starts flashing when one bot stays in the car. The best way to avoid this issue is to play with at least 2 human players, but a solo patch would also be nice. Another mid addition to the tier list to end it off. I knew this video would take longer than part 1, but hey, better late than never, am I right? When I saw what campaigns I wanted to rank in this episode, I straight up knew Buried Deep, Dark Wood and Crash Bandicoot would need walls of text to be properly ranked, and they were also the main reason this video took longer to make. I initially planned to release at least 1 or maybe even 2 episodes every month, because I want to finish this series in a somewhat realistic time span. The next installment of the series will also take a bit longer to come out, as I have more big additions planned for the tier list, so please bear with me. And do subscribe if you don't want to miss out on it. Also, please let me know if I got something wrong when I ranked anything, because I'm bound to mess up somewhere and I don't like spreading misinformation. Or you can also let me know what you liked in this episode. I do tend to grow wiser with every comment I read. Alright, that's enough yapping for today. I'll see you in the next one.